Call the meeting to order with everyone present. First item on the agenda this morning, TJ Schissel, Rural Waste Coordinator. Program updates.
All right, so I was in a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, with some possible changes and left it up to citizens to voice some comments, concerns. And we did receive one by email about the change of times to the landfill. We're thinking about changing it from 8 o'clock to 3:30 because we open at 8 and close at 3:30. We're actually there at 7, so we're going to keep it the same, 7 to 2 at the landfill. I'll have to pay a little bit more in overtime for Megan when she comes at 7, but that'll be fine. Just be a lot smoother if we would keep it the same as all the other sites, and then eliminate the Ocean site altogether. So then we'll only have one site, Bluffton, that will be on private property at the Bluffton store. But it'd be every day and Monday, Locust site. Tuesday would be switched from Mondays to Tuesday. And Brian Sweska said that's fine. Just have to draw up a new lease agreement with them. And then Wednesday again would still be in Locust. And then Thursday would change. The first and third Thursday would be at Kendallville site. Second and fourth would be at the Fort site. And then Friday, it'd be back to Locust, the first and third Friday of the month. And then Ridgeway would be second and fourth. And that's what Ridgeway is already. And I asked the monitors if they would think this would work, and they do. They think this would work fine.
The public, anyone with a placard could go to the landfill.
Yep. Monday through Friday, you could go to the landfill and dispose of that bag garbage as long as you have a placard. We're starting to hand these out right now to the rural residents we know have property in the county and in the rural area that have registered. There is about 5 that we'll have to have Winneshiek County send letters to that are in city limits of Winneshiek County that have registered, but they don't pay for this program. So we'll have to get with Ben or somebody to have a letterhead from Winneshiek County to let them know that they can't use this site, these sites. So yeah, if they bring this to the landfill or any other site as of January 1, hopefully, then they'll be able to dispose of trash. Yeah.
And this won't start until January 1st.
January 1st, yep. And then going with that, we've talked about the committee of Winneshiek County recycling, hauling all the rural waste dumpsters. Right now they haul Fort Atkinson, in Kendallville, in Ridgeway. So they'll be adding 2 other sites. That'd be Locust site, they'd be adding, and let's see, Kendallville. They do Kendallville already.
Oh, okay.
Yep, they do Kendallville already. The Bluffton site, okay. They would start picking up. Bluffton is the only one that they don't have recycling bins at. So that might be a deadhead from Bluffton to somewhere else, Hesper.
Would the Scuska, the Bluffton store, want recycling bin placed there? I mean, would it, if it's not really gonna take much more?
I don't know, because then that'd be 7 days a week. So I can't speak for them that they would. Mondays were always nice for the dumpster to be there because they weren't open on Mondays. Now they're open on Tuesdays, but Brian said that's kind of a slower day for them. So
Maybe given the amount of recycling the campground there generates, it can be a plus for them to have.
possibly,
Maybe something worth offering, as long as they don't want to charge us more rent to put it there. Yeah.
right.
The only thing is we may or may not have enough recycling containers to be able to add another site to it without it kind of depends. And we do, if I understand correctly, we need to consider purchasing 2 more containers.
Yep, so we have 2 containers right now, and 2 more would be great. And the ones that built the 2 we have are Gregory containers out of Missouri. And I got a quote here for a 30-yard roll-off. It would be $6,434. We would look at 2 of those, then plus freight costs. Freight cost is $665. That's either $665 for 1. If you get 2, it's $665 also. They just put the 1 inside the other. So that give us 4 dumpsters. Then we could, recycling need to use it for something else. They could, but they're 10 weeks out for those dumpsters. Yeah, so that's pushing it. We do have 2 on site though, which is nice. So we could get by. We're going to 1 dumpster per day.
How much was it? Were they 6,000?
$6,434. I can't remember offhand, it's like $500 or $700 more than what they were 3 years ago when we bought these. So not too bad, actually, with the inflation. So yeah, we'd need to approve those if you want the recycling center to start hauling those as of January 1st.
And I would move that we approve the purchase of 2 30-yard containers.
You want to make a motion to include the new schedule, too, do it all once?
Thank you. I meant to do that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'll second the amended motion.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously.
How many registered users are we up to now?
Oh, that'd be a question for John. I don't know. I went out, Russell had to leave for a couple hours, so I went up to Locust and ran the iPad system, and there's still people that weren't registered. So then we were still registering them there or giving them the.
With the over 1,500. Registered so far.
Correct. Yeah, yeah. So quite a few.
And we have to termination, one of the haulers is 30 days, the other is 60 days.
Yes,
So
thank you.
would need to.
Yeah. Reliable is 60 days, written notice that we have to get to them. And Brian Sweska is 30 days for his lease to switch it.
So would you recommend we just terminate effective January 1?
That's what I would recommend. Yep. Yeah.
In it, I think you could consider that as part of the approved changes.
Yeah.
So we just need to make sure you're gonna notify them then.
That's all on the county part. You guys handle that. Those are all written out to
So we should maybe have
Winneshiek.
Andy.
Winneshiek County.
Prepare.
Yeah.
Yep, yeah. And I think the letters, and we'll probably get some more incoming that people will register that are in city limits, that John or IT will notify me, and we'll have to get some more letters out. But those letters I think need to come from Winneshiek County also, not the landfill.
Those city residents might have property in the country, which would legitimize them dropping off.
Yeah, and I looked on Beacon because there was 13 of them to start out with. And some do have rural property. So then I took those off the list. But right now there's 5 that I can't find that have rural property, but maybe they do under a different
Part of
partnership.
LLC or something.
Yes, right. So we want to find that out before we send the letters.
They can tell us if we do something like.
Right, exactly. Yeah,
I'm sure they will.
I'm sure.
yes, I'm sure they will. So, yeah.
If we can put some recycling bins in Bluffton, where they run for?
I don't know. You'd have to ask the recycling.
The group out of Minnesota up there, is that where we previously bought?
They have bought some out of there. Yep. Yeah.
And if depending on the outcome of the school bond election in November, you may not be able to have recycling bins down
Down here?
after
Might have to
they
find
start
that
that.
out.
They're gonna use, that's where the new school is gonna go, if they pass the bond issue.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you might have The bins available.
Bins there.
Yeah.
I think the residents of Decorah might not be happy with that.
Yeah. So then we're
They're
well
well
used trying to put them.
You'd have to leave that up to the city.
Come shop.
Then you're almost to recycling already.
Recycling already.
You want to go into it?
Yeah, that wouldn't do any good.
Potentially at the,
Maybe
maybe
the
the fairground.
Fairgrounds or
The
something.
city has some property there in the county that, or the fair association.
I was thinking the same thing up until I thought, well, yeah, the county shopping is.
Might as well go right there. Okay.
Yeah.
Stop. The debris.
Leave it in there.
Yeah, sure. The fair board's in it.
Yeah.
But we should probably. let-
Just wait until see what happens in November, because, yeah.
Meanwhile, we might need, if Bluffton would agree, potentially to even pull from down here or, because they've got 6 or 8.
And they're used down there. The way it sounds, they're full a lot. I mean, yeah.
After
the
we
Decorah
get there.
ones, yeah.
I just want to thank the committee working on this and Russ and everybody involved.
Yeah, thank you.
You know, good communication and he came up with a solution and we found out it works really well.
Now, there might be some hiccups, I mean, people are used to going, weekly.
Yeah.
So now switching a couple to every other week, there might be some times that.
We'll remind people, everybody that lives in a city has once a week.
Right, exactly. And now if proved, we can get this out to
Is
people.
Kendallville weekly now, or is that every other?
Yep. Kendallville is weekly now, every Wednesday. And they have a 30-yard dumpster there. And yes, that's gonna be, yeah. Fort is every week, so that's gonna be a struggle.
They never have full.
Correct, yeah, unless it's a holiday or something like that. What's really gonna crimping it is, like Christmas this year. Christmas Eve is Tuesday, I think. Christmas Day is on Wednesday. So that
Oh, it's like messed up.
crimping some, say that Wednesday with locust, then on Friday, it just might.
But we'll have next year, next year's Christmas to sort that out better.
Right, and we got a spare dumpster. If it gets full, we'll just have to run one up there like they do now, Be some hiccups. We'll work with them.
And the public should know by doing this and hauling our own with the recycling center, we'll be able to cut the amount of money we have to invest in that.
Yeah, I think you guys, I figured up
That's
some
what the
numbers
savings
and then
is.
you guys did too, and your numbers were better than mine of savings, so.
This all started when you were talking about getting rid of the program or charging for the program and to try to offset the cost. So this seems to be a good way to maintain it with still saving some money.
Money. I think to get it down there, probably won't have to do a surcharge. I mean, see what it's like, where we get it end up at.
It may be it may eventually be that. Meantime, once we get it up, make these changes, get them running to be able to have some decent numbers. The data that we first collected out of it, just the simple registration part was extremely valuable.
All of that stuff was great, that Reggie and John, the whole IT department set up, gave us some true numbers.
When it comes up with a user map, you can say, well, here's what the concentration is, here's what we need to keep the.
Yeah, and Locust was our most used site.
Yeah.
That one is, that's.
The number of users, that just shocked me.
Exactly.
3 times more.
Went from 600, 500, say, 3 times more, because some people come once a month, some people come.
Some people come a couple of times a year.
Right, exactly. You just didn't
I
know.
think we found somebody from Montana that is here for 2 weeks.
Yep,
You know,
as a place and that's
As a
all
place.
they use it, so, yeah. No, it's a good program. Keeps our ditches clean.
Yep.
Well, thank you for the hard work you do.
Yeah, well, thank all you.
Thank you.
And I will call to get these ordered then, on the list.
Andy will cancel the.
Andy about canceling the hauling contract, modifying the rental contract, and kind of letter we should send to the city residents.
Yep,
That
right.
tried to register.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. 9:45, next Item on the agenda, Mike Kueny, County Engineer, road project updates. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning. How are you doing?
Take the version of what I sent y'all. Since the last meeting, Bridge 5, 1/4 of the approach was poured on Friday. Another section is likely to be poured tomorrow. Completion will likely be into November. Bridge 208E, check plans are submitted. Final plans are being worked on. W14, contract paving operations south of Spillville likely to be completed tomorrow. That's just the Fort Spillville. Does not include the town of Fort. So Fort, it's all milled up right now, and it's just waiting on getting more equipment out there. But that's the contractor's discretion. Discussion about Spillville to Ridgeway to follow. Future wedging would hypothetically begin when there is availability. That, not sure if we're going to get to wedging, any more wedging. We're going to try to get it covered more than wedging, I think, is the discussion right now. A second crew has been discussed starting next week. Nothing is certain on that. And I talked to Schissel County and Howard County engineers, and they still have projects going there. So at least the weather's cooperating. If we can get into December and still be warm, it'd be great for us.
What is wedging?
Wedging is getting the cross section of your pavement to a consistent cross section for the pavement that we're paying right now to be uniform. Right now, the Ridgeway is paving is very up and down, and we're just trying to smooth it out so that the paving operations are easier to do when they have their paving operations happen. So
Haven't they done about, say, 40 or 40% of the wedging so far in that?
I don't know. I can't tell you that number, but it's
close to that. I mean, as I've driven it.
yeah, but I don't know what the sections were intended. That was discussed with staff and River City. So I don't know the exact. I don't know what the estimate was based off of that we got. So don't know how far they're going to go up with that, but I know that there's more to be done towards the north side of it that they want to get done.
Yeah, and then on the south side, going back in, we're probably we've started about the north side of the railroad crossing or west side of the railroad crossing from there forward, and everything is still open. Going back in the other way, the railroad crossing hasn't really been addressed.
We're talking about Fort, or we talking Fort? So yeah, everything there is gonna. The issue there is we haven't got concrete work. Work with Brunings hasn't been coordinated, so that is, we're waiting on called Brunings. I don't want to. That's just that's to be expected. Kind of on their schedule, and they're working with River City as to what works best for Brunings and River City. So as far as I know, there's no real concern there. It's just something that we take note of. So I worked on the speed study this weekend. I expect to report this week. I'm trying to get all of the appendixes in a report-like format. Subdivision data, that cost study will be forthcoming after I get the speed study done. I haven't heard anything regarding the union negotiations. FEMA is the same as last week. Ridgeway shop improvements began this week. I
don't remember where they ended up on Friday. As we haven't put the boiler or any of that system in yet on Friday.
All the cement pretty well cleaned out of there when I was driving by.
Yes, the cement,
Yeah,
were
working Saturday.
they working on Saturday? So you know more than I do then.
Yeah, because I drive by there all corn. Right along that way.
I'm working with the SS4A grant program. I have a number of things I have to do for a checklist this week. But none of that is really material to anything that we want to get done, mostly admin. The truck sales that we got passed through last week, I talked to Gene. His other customer for the Allison transmissions is likely not going to be able to pay them in first half, so we might get them sooner rather than later. So that's what that's about. And then ice control rock is continuing to be hauled. I've talked to the superintendent to know exactly what their plans are this week, but that's what I do. I can let you know if you're have questions on that. That's the report for this week. I have a couple of things that I have questions on and would like to talk to the board about. Thursday or Friday of last week, I was informed that a bill for signs that is normally paid out of the 911 account is being passed on to our office to be paid. It's just, so what it is every year we're supposed to do, and I'm learning as I'm going here. So every year we're supposed to do a township's worth of signs on the street signs, and then also 911 signs to update. Decisions were made, and I don't even know exactly when the decisions were made, to make up for lost time during COVID, because some of that work didn't get done. So we have a larger bill, and the 911 account, I'm not exactly sure how this is. The people in charge of the 911 account are not paying for any of those signs, whereas in the past they typically pay up to 10,000, and then we would cover the rest. I'm trying to spare the secondary roads fund. So my question to you and my suggestion to you is that board has been gracious enough to put money into the roadside fund. So instead of paying it out of secondary roads, they'd like to pay the claim out of the roadside management fund. And this is not something I would like to do typically, because signs are a secondary road fund budget item, but this is kind of,
I don't know if that would be allowed because they're not
this is why I'm talking.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the stipulations are in terms of roadside management. I don't have a list of, is it this, then we can use it for that type of thing. But my goal would be to try to get this paid through the roadside management fund as a one-time expense. Again, a lot of special circumstances here around this. So I might work with all of you in the background on that, and then we can have that discussion one-on-one here.
How much are the signs?
We're talking about a $26,000 bill. So that's a chunk of change that is outside of my view on how to budget for things.
Why isn't the 911 or 911 account paying?
I don't quite have a grasp of all of those things that are going on there, and I can't speak to why that's happening exactly. I just know that we got told that this needs to happen, and I don't want to say anything publicly that is incorrect here. So again, it's something I need to talk to Ben, but I need to bring forward because the claim should probably be paid this week. And
no money.
Please mute your mics if you're online on the meeting. Thank you.
So, and then,
But then it's not possible to do that.
I think I wouldn't recommend doing that until you've at least checked with Andy, and I don't know that you're going to, I don't know if there's a definitive list. This is allowed and this isn't allowed, but the further you stray from what is allowed is the more likely that the auditors are gonna say you've done something inappropriate.
yes, I'm trying, that's why I'm talking here. I just want to make sure that,
So if,
Because signs are, I mean, you have money outside the road budget for the maintenance of the right of way. And so that's where you plantings and bought some equipment and mowed some grass and so on, but signs are really a function of the secondary road department and 911. So it seems that one of those two should be paid.
yes, so just,
there's really nothing we can do about it. It's just a matter of he and Andy and 911 working that out.
Legality, if we can do it or not through the.
Yeah, so it's probably.
A portion of these signs is the site number, the street number emergency signal. And a part of them are other signs.
yeah, like the,
Those signs themselves.
and I would typically, I mean, if someone were to come to me and say, hey, do you want me to spend $26,000 on these signs? And I had that discussion with them, I would say, sure, we can put this out. But this all came up, I think it was Thursday afternoon, and I want to protect my budget is what the goal is here.
So this,
So-
so this is also replacing street
Street
signs.
Yeah. And it's higher than normal this year because the power, whoever was making these discussions without me, said that it was make up for some COVID time here. And again, this is all,
It hasn't been done for a couple of years.
so you might know more than me then.
It was
So,
on the cycle.
so it was on a cycle, yes. So, and then the other piece of information that I have received is that there was a $10,000 grant that we didn't get. They paid for a lot of these signs in the past. So again, this is all I kind of got hit with this at the end of the week last week. So let's, I just want to be in communication this week so we can get paid what we need to get paid.
Do you want to assign a couple of the board members to work with Michael and Andy and Dan and figure out, Dan's the chairperson of 911?
Okay.
Yeah. So they can work through the week rather than, you don't want to have to call a special meeting to figure out who's paying for signs.
Okay.
So I would say at least get two of the board members or one or two of them to work as the representative board and to talk with Dan and figure out who's going to pay for what, and maybe Andy, whether they can.
I'm on, I talked to Dan.
So, yeah. So who's B Mark and Dan?
Yeah, that's fine.
And then the second thing is a little bit of just another administrative thing. The 6-county meeting, Winneshiek County is in charge of that. We're looking at Thursday the 12th loosely.
Oh,
This is
December.
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 Yes, sorry about that. And this is just spitballing this morning on that. So if you have a better idea, we're welcome to hear it. The previous week we have the county engineers conference, so that's probably a no-go. And then after that, school's out of session. It's just gonna be kind of hard for Christmas reasons. So if there's a better day during the week, let me know, but Thursdays seems to be what we've done in the past. That's kind of how the decision kind of got made. So,
And you got the location or?
I'm
That was.
without confirming anything, we're looking at the bowling alley here in town. So they've got nice rooms. I went and checked them out.
Good food.
So I know that they're not open that early, but they might open up for us is the idea. So. And with that, that is my report.
Yeah, just a comment, I guess. They've reduced the width of the striping now on roads.
They haven't reduced it. They're so
It looks narrower than. I
I haven't measured the ones in the communities. It does look funny. So So
that'd be quite a cost savings in paint if you were taking it.
so the standard is 4 inches. What's happened just recently on state highways and federal highways is that they've gone to the 6-inch paint instead of the 4-inch paint. There's been discussions with the engineers conference to make everything 6 inches or keep everything 4 inches. All of the county engineers that I've talked to want to keep it 4 inches, obviously to save money. But again, it's a discussion that the feds versus locals, are
Yeah.
trying to solve.
Notice it looks.
It does look.
compared to-
Well, I thought it was just because of the spacing between the line, the center lines was just wider. So when I looked at it first, is what I thought of it. But then it's also kind of a nice smooth surface. So I was just like, they seem to have hit everything that we wanted to in terms of passing lanes and not. So that's
I
that's
just wanted
last
to
I
ask you their standard now, what, but
I can't
Well, you
tell
don't have to have paid for 4 inches and then get it, so.
No, the 4 inches.
paid for 6, only got 4.
Yeah.
I haven't gone out and measured it, so I just was.
That's what I was saying, but
So
potentially could have been.
I can check that for sure.
What are we doing on that, cut across?
The 165th.
Yeah.
So the culverts are undersized there on that road. So we're putting in, instead of 36 and 24-inch culverts, there's going to be 2 48-inch culverts. It's going to be replaced. And then the other problem with that road is it has a lot of snow drift. So we're going to be cutting from the side and putting onto the road, a higher road to help reduce drifts on that road.
Okay. Are we buying any more of that land to the south like we did to the north?
You're not buying any more land to the south. Those discussions all happened before me, but my understanding is the landowner to the south was not playing ball as easily as the person to the north. So we got the right of way we wanted. We got a road that was taller and we balanced our cut fills. And the project as is, yeah, that's.
So is that getting done this fall yet?
So the bridge crew is doing good work this year.
You maybe won't have quite as many people stuck down in
Yeah.
there.
I'm excited about it.
Yeah, no, that's good. So yeah, this has been a fantastic summer for the bridge crew. So.
Anyone have anything else? I think you're good to go, Mike.
All right. Yes.
Consent agenda?
Minutes is all I have.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries unanimously. Community reports?
County Social Services on Wednesday. The only one this week.
Got behavioral health on Tuesday. And that's it for this week.
For the week.
For you guys.
We only have to vote once.
Yeah, that's right.
Would you
How are your
have,
numbers?
yeah,
We had between the Luther site and first day of voting Wednesday, we had about 500 voters. And all the absentee ballots got mailed out. And then we had between 310, 325 both Thursday and Friday. It's been just constantly busy with voters. So,
you've got enough workers up there. It's great.
yeah,
How many voters total?
there's about 15,000 registered voters, active or inactive in Winneshiek County. Many of we had to do a mailing to all of the Decorah School District voters for the bond issue. It's required by state law for a mailing now. So I noticed when preparing that there were hundreds of inactive voters with Luther College addresses. So they were potentially students that have left. So I would guess that it takes 6 years of not voting before your name is removed from the list. So I would guess as those clean up, we don't really have 15,000 that are still residents here, but we added over 100 at the Luther site last week. So we ended 100 new ones, and then it takes the years for the others to fall off. Yeah. Unless they register in somewhere else in Iowa, then they fall off right away, or one of the states we work with, then they can come off, but it takes, sometimes that even takes a year or more for all the communication to happen. But yes, it's been very busy. We did have fewer mailed out ballots than we have sometimes in the past. So I don't know if that means that more people just plan to vote in person or fewer plan to vote. I don't know what that means, but so far it seems like they've just been voting more in person. So.
So on that school bond issue, even though you own land in the Decorah School District, but if you live in the South Winneshiek School
Yeah,
District,
that's where you live.
is where your residence is.
Where your residence is, yeah.
I knew that's what it was, but I just wanted to verify it for.
There's even strange cases in some counties where a house is in 2 school districts. Then they have to go by where their bedroom is. Yeah.
Of the parent, not the child?
Well, yeah, you can have different school. There are places where a house is built across school district lines, and so then it's supposed to be where you sleep, where your bedroom is.
Really?
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't think we have any of those here, but it has happened in Iowa, so.
Yeah. You got some of that on this year?
Yeah.
We had Winneshiek County Development Tourism meeting last week.
And we both forgot the paperwork from it. Next week we'll
I'll
bring,
bring the handouts for you guys on next Monday.
and for the audience next Monday too, but it was a very good meeting.
It was.
And the hotel motel tax revenue is way up. They're excited about that. 80.9% of that comes from Decorah, but it's shared throughout the county. They're doing a lot of projects right now in the southern part of the county. You haven't talked to any of that?
Well.
We'll bring it next week.
From me.
Don't want to misquote it.
No.
Right. I'll bring all the handouts. So everybody here will have them, and
Purposely got extras for all of me, but they don't do any good when I'm sitting on the counter at home.
Any word on DHS?
No. You know, send out a little message to her after the meeting today. I've been kind of. So. There is an open house coming up too for the sun. Can't remember what the date was.
look it up.
It was really a beautiful place, I will tell you that. That's where we had the meeting.
If you haven't had a chance to see Sunflower Daycare yet, there is a open house coming up. I'm going to try to find it here, unless somebody online knows, and you could raise your hand and tell us. I will post it on my Facebook page when I find it. But that facility, you can rent out their meeting room, and it's just an awesome meeting space for the public to rent and to use. You can also use the Discovery Center and that meeting room / kitchen area, kitchenette for birthday parties or private parties.
Mhm.
It's worth going to see what they have there. Very well done.
There's a small gym in there. that also gets rented out. That discovery area with the water table and everything is really, really,
How much is the rent?
I don't know that off the top of my head. I don't think we even got that information when we were there.
Surely it looks like it's October
Thank you. Do you have the time?
5:30 to 7:30.
So October 25th, 5:30 to 7:30, Sunflower Daycare Open House and Discovery Center. The Discovery Center, I think a lot of us didn't want to leave. It was really fun to, to play in there. They've got really some great, it's all STEAM-based, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math-based. So it's a wonderful facility for our county. And you can take, you know, grandkids there and your own kids there. There'll be a fee structure and membership fees and things, but they're trying to make it available to all.
they have yearly memberships, there's different ways it's structured.
Alex, thank you for the information.
And they, from what I understand, the Hawk meeting, that they have capacity to handle more students. They just don't have the staffing.
Well, and they want to keep that to 80%
Yeah.
of capacity. So as the children get older, they can move into the next level.
And they also have a whole Head Start classroom for Northeast Iowa Community Action. The Head Start program is now at Sunflower, the Head Start for this area. So that's one whole classroom. And those kids then also use the Discovery Center and get the snacks and meals. And it's a really wonderful partnership and a renter for that space. So that's another revenue stream for Sunflower Daycare.
Is that federal money?
For Head Start.
All right.
It's a great asset for Winneshiek County, that's for sure. Especially since the Spring Grove closed down.
How many were there?
It's a good number. Because I know people from Decorah were driving to Spring Grove previously. Now that's not an option.
If you could make that October 25th open house, it's worth your time.
We have a nice we have a nice additional conference space over there at the Community Services Building. We've used that on a couple of occasions because it's a smaller conference room, but it really works out nicely for the kind of other county meetings where we're not tying up the annex, or the annex is tied up.
That actually holds quite a few people.
Who should they get a hold of if they want to use that space?
That's a good question. We just, I think we mentioned, when we met over there, we did mention it to Ben. I guess we could set it up on the calendar.
Yeah, we probably need to set it up, but maybe in 3 weeks or so.
After the election.
Sometime middle of November, is that what you're?
Yeah.
The week after you take off, is that what happens?
You must be.
Andy say if he's gonna be virtual or not.
He's not on here yet, unless he's using a different connection. As long as we're talking about meeting space in Decorah or the Winneshiek County area, community center in Austin is rentable, right?
Yeah.
Is the retirement senior center here rentable for meetings? Yes. And community service buildings, Billville.
Yeah, both have community centers that can be rented.
The last I heard it was about $50.
Where?
Senior.
Senior center.
And they've done some renovations there, correct?
That's what the rate is in Washington.
Quite
They're
affordable.
getting that generator. That's thing on.
Ridgeway also has a community center,
Yeah.
community center, large enough for all kinds of large parties and
That's a good size one there.
Yeah.
very nice.
And I just saw a big wedding was held in the new facility at the county fair too.
Yeah.
The fairgrounds.
Oh, yeah, there've been a lot of them there.
Mhm.
That's been going on for a couple of years.
Yeah, it's a wonderful asset.
Yeah,
Yeah, the one at Festina was getting the
generator, yeah.
Any other updates on the election stuff?
Just keeping busy. Yeah.
I took a
Ready to go back.
picture of the ballot box.
Mhm.
That's not a ballot box. So make sure, do you want to speak to that at all?
Yeah, so the drop box is, you can leave voter registration forms or absentee ballot request forms or any other county business in there, like for the treasurer or clerk of court or something, but it's not, doesn't meet the state's specifications for a ballot box, so we can't say it's a ballot box. We still have people that put ballots in there and we still get them, but it's not.
If a ballot ends up in there, an absentee ballot ends up in the drop box, is it still counted?
Doesn't meet all the other requirements, so we have to put not for ballots on the box.
Why don't you guys go ahead and talk about an update on recycling then?
That if we take this time, we've, Mark and I have done a lot of time going through all of our operations and all of any possible opportunities for improvement or.
Here comes in.
There's the stream.
And other facilities.
Yeah, and viewed 3 other facilities and how they handle their recycling, how they handle everything associated with, from 2 of them that are county run, one that is a private facility. And of course, the private facility is handling a significantly larger volume of recyclables,
10 times.
10 times what we do in Winneshiek County.
So where have you visited so far?
Cresco, Fillmore County, Kankakee County, and then we went up to La Crosse, which is this larger commercial reseller facility. They do 10 times the amount
Mhm.
that we do. But lots of options and, seeing how other people do it, either in-house or exporting it, or lots of different ways.
Not only do we do 10 times the volume of the private operation, whereas we are significantly subsidized in our own.
Andy, do you have anything for us?
Oh, sorry I'm late. I don't want to hold you up. I see you guys are going to visit water treatment plant today.
Zipper.
They had 3 issues related to rural waste to discuss. Do you want to talk about them or you want me to go?
Go ahead.
Okay, they need to contact their hauler. That's a 60-day notice to cancel the contract as of July 1.
Yeah.
January 1. January 1, sorry.
There's 2 halls.
Okay. And they need to contact the place they rent in Bluffton, update the contract for
From
Tuesday.
Monday to Tuesday.
From Mondays to Tuesdays. Third thing is hopefully you can help us draft a letter to city residents that have tried to register for the rural collection service, and so to tell them that they're not eligible because
If they're a non.
or maybe
Rural.
they have property under a different name or something that they're managing or that they.
So the letter would
If they can show proof of that.
Yes, yeah, so the letter needs to kind of encompass the fact that we don't see that you have any rural property, but if you don't, you can't use the service, but if you do, we need to know more information type letter.
So like,
And we want that just as a form letter that can be sent out by,
because I think there'll be more probably.
DJ said there was 11 or something when he started, but then their primary residence was in town, but he verified that they owned property someplace else. So he's got it down to like 5 people right now, but as more people register, he kind of would like to have a letter put together that,
TJ's signature then?
Generic letter for
I
everybody.
think he wants it to come from the board.
Dan's signature.
Yeah.
Because those people may have LLC or something.
but the whole system has stopped other out of county residents and a number of people who, once we started registering, that stopped a number of them from using the service.
Resident.
Or the two hustlers.
Yeah.
2 haulers, I don't, what are the names of the companies? I'd have to look it up.
One is reliable and
Brian, something.
We'll get them to you.
Comes on the blank.
And then a fourth thing, not relating to that, which would be related to our needs in recycling, especially since we're replacing retiring manager. We've taken applications, as you know, Andy, we have a number of applications. We have a 3-person committee that has been reviewing all of the operations and with Mark and I and TJ. And there's maybe 2 options. I think it's timely. We have applicants that we need to interview. And I have 2 suggestions. One is that the committee interview the whole stack of interviewees and make a recommendation to the board, for the board to either accept recommendation or to go ahead and interview all, or we do it and where the board interviews all. What's your suggestion in that?
You've got what, 3, 4 applicants?
4 applicants.
My suggestion is that the board just interview all of them, maybe have TJ sit in on the interview. I mean, even if the committee narrows it down to 2, what does that gain you? I mean, you're only talking an extra 2 interviews. I think it'd be appropriate to interview all of them. That's good.
And Terry Benzow said he would be interested in seeing, on the interviews. I don't know what the board thinks about that. I mean, he has the knowledge of the business to ask questions that would be associated with recycling. I don't believe a lot of us on the board know.
Would we do that then in closed session?
It'll be up to the applicant.
So similar to what we did with hiring an engineer.
So, yeah.
And you did have a engineer from another county as part of the interview process that was eligible to be in the closed session.
And I brought up TJ, I think, just, because he's been working with the 2 of you and is familiar with at least some of what's going on out there. And recycling, we're pretty close.
What he does, definitely.
Overlaps.
Yeah. Terry has history there. He's been gone for a few years, but like you say, he might have some insight into it. But for the number of applicants you have, Steve, and given the fact that, you may run into a guidance preference issue, that type of thing, I think it's better for the whole board to look at it.
And we do have one applicant who has interest preference.
Yeah, so I think it's better for the whole board to hear from everybody.
And I would suggest that we move on it. If we can do it this week, but at least we need to be moving on this next week.
We would need to reach out and see if they want a closed session or not. All of them, I think, are employed.
Andy and I can get that. There's a form we had when we did engineers that we had them notify them of their option to request a closed session. And some of us told us ahead of time, and one of them, I don't think, decided till he got here if he wanted it closed or not. So we'll dig out that perform and set up a similar process. So next week, sometime I should contact them and see if they're available and if you have days that work for you, and I can try to coordinate a schedule.
Or you want to coordinate them right after the election?
I don't think
Maybe
that
easier.
we're running short on time when we look at the retirement.
Our current director has officially submitted his end date. So we know that.
If there's a chance they're gonna be closed session, then I need to sit in to record it, and there are certain times that I can't do it next week because I have worker training and public testing of voting equipment and things going on next week, but I can, if I'm coordinating the schedule, I can make sure it doesn't overlap with those things.
Could IT also come down and vote it in your absence?
Well, they wouldn't be allowed to be in the
Closed session.
closed session if it becomes a closed session. That's only can be the allowed people, and I'm supposed to be, or a representative of my office is supposed to be here for a closed session.
If TJ is on, can he be part of that closed session?
We tell them ahead of time that here's the committee. That's what we did with the engineer anyway. We told them ahead of time it would be the board and another county engineer from another county. I think that's what we need to do again, is notify them of who's the hiring committee, and then they choose if they want to open it.
I think the sooner we can move ahead with that, the better. If it works with your schedule, Beth, that's the whole thing. And if we all can't be at every one of the interviews because it's the only time they can do it, then that's the way it is. I had also said even evenings would work for me. That's, since everyone else is employed someplace.
Yeah.
Maybe we have to do it in the evenings or something.
Yeah, that's fine.
Why don't I just leave it that if any of you have times don't work for you, to let me know by email or something in the next day or two, and I'll reach out to the people and see what their schedules look like and see what we can coordinate.
Or to keep it so at least there's three of us here, so we have, have three of us here to do the interview, because I mean, it's.
And as we've said, I mean, maybe none of these people would end up being the person. We need to keep the search open since it's still open, ongoing.
That's a good point. I think I can make just about any time.
Yeah,
work.
I mean, like,
Maybe to
Coordinate that day.
time or
You're-
two,
you're-
that doesn't-
You probably have more issues than we do.
Yeah.
I think other than the Monday, it's.
We're talking next week.
For evenings, I mean, that works just as well too.
I'll see what I can coordinate with the 4 people and see what we can come up with.
You're gonna get around.
If they're not available, are you okay putting them
I'll
on
be available by phone.
till the following week? I mean, if they happen to not be available next week, if we could use the following week, is that okay?
That'd be fine with
They
me.
to work with their discretion.
The only thing was with the food pantry. I got a message from Steve and he thought the language in that lease agreement was pretty good. Said the only thing would be, they would probably like to go start it over and go 10 years would be the only change. So I don't know what the board thought.
I would say,
10 years.
yes, I would say stay with the original 10 years, the original contract, if that's what they want to go with, that's what I would say.
And that's how it's drafted. correct?
It is correct now.
Yep.
I will get back to him then and let him know that. If he has anything else, I'll let you know.
And then we'll need to schedule a public hearing since it's longer than 3 years. Or not.
Let me think about that. I mean,
Okay.
part of it is you did a public hearing for the purchase of the building and the purchase agreement included.
Language that said you would
We
honor.
are assuming the leases.
That's true.
And that was a 10-year lease at the time, so you certainly can do a public hearing. I'm not sure you need to, given the public hearing you had at the time of the purchase. Let me think about that.
And I don't think it's very controversial, so if we have to schedule one, it just it'll take 3 weeks to do it, so.
The other thing, several people ask about, are the recording part of the meetings? Where's that at?
Sitting on my desk, kind of. I've got, I apologize. I have a draft protocol put together. I haven't had time to finalize and send it back to John to review because I want to make sure that that everybody's on board with how we're looking at recording and preserving and publishing.
No, I just had questions.
Anything else for you? No.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next item on the agenda, Rachel Brummel and Wendy Stevens, Natural and Historic Resources Report.
Who's gonna notify Andy of the other hauler?
I just sent it
Out.
to TJ.
Is
I'll get a hold of them.
IT on and do you have that presentation? I think they have it. Yep, there you go.
Yeah.
I printed a few copies in case the IT didn't work, but
Oh, I did too, Ben. We were
Okay,
so-
good.
But I have full reports for everybody too.
I know, I thought maybe the
Mine.
press would want it.
One's around.
Thanks for notes for later.
Good docs there.
Actually,
It used to.
Got it, like a good one.
Slip it. If we both on it, sit on the end, so it's voices.
Oh, okay, great.
Most of you know me, I'm Wendy Stevens, and I'm the chair of the Winneshiek County Zoning Commission. Today I'm going to refer to the zoning commission as the zoning commission, often it's called P and Z, but I think we'll use the official title. So Rachel Brummel and I are here to present the findings of a project titled Winneshiek County's Natural and Historic Resources, Understanding Residents' Values and Priorities. I want to make clear at the beginning that there is no action required in your part. This is a report. And it does not go into the ordinance. It will be available, however, for people who would like to know the data that was discovered in this particular survey. So I'm going to start with a timeline because it's been going on for a few years. And then Rich is going to take over as a result of this study. We have to go back 9 years. 9 years ago, 2015. There was serious concern in this county that unregulated frac sand mining would become a real problem. And so on March 2nd, 2015, the Board of Supervisors, and by the way, that Board of Supervisors did not have anybody who's sitting here today. It was a totally different Board of Supervisors. That Board of Supervisors and the Zoning Commission had a joint meeting. And the Board of Supervisors, and I'll just say BOS because that's a little bit easier, passed a motion that the Zoning Commission should address industrial and sand or frac sand mining and, quote, formulate an industrial mining regulatory scheme and incorporate and expand overlay provisions into a resource protection overlay district consistent with the comprehensive plan. So once section 713, excavation and mining of industrial minerals, was written and approved for our ordinance, the Zoning Commission turned its attention to a resource protection overlay district. We contacted Iowa State University, who had individuals who were experts in writing surveys and collecting survey data. Barry Taylor and Julia Badenholt from Iowa State University came up here and attended a joint meeting with BOS and the Zoning Commission in April of 2016. Julia felt very strongly that if people decide what direction, we should say, what resources should be protected, then they will support protecting those resources. And so we changed our direction. Instead of an overlay district, we decided we needed to find out what the public wanted protected and to have this information available to make the best informed decisions in the future. So over a year later, February of 2018, Julia Badenholt submitted a proposal for 2 years of research by graduate students to gather public opinion and submit findings concerning which resources to protect. The budget for her proposal was $98,801. $98,801 was 10 times what Board of Supervisors had allocated for a project like this. And if you've ever read projects coming from a research institution, you will see that much of the funding benefited the professors and the students, a lot in the salaries. And what this was doing then was they were looking for new ways to research how to present findings, and we didn't really think that was going to apply to our county, and so we denied that proposal. Also, we didn't have the money. In June of 2018, BOS agreed upon a $10,000 line item in the 2019 budget to fund such a study. And we asked Rachel Brummel, Assistant Professor of Environmental Studies at Luther College, if she would be interested in doing this. She was interested, and she submitted a proposal to do this project after she completed an ongoing flood study project that she was doing for the county. December 2018, Rachel Brummel reviewed her proposal with the Zoning Commission to sample the population of Winneshiek County for their opinions of what county resources should be protected. That funding was to start in July of 2019 with a final report available in late August 2020. BOS approved this proposal and increased the amount of funding by $2,000 to a total of $12,000 to cover costs adequately. In the spring of 2019, Mike McGee, who was on the Zoning Commission, Tony Phillips, and I attended 2 of Rachel's class periods to see how this project would be done. And this was followed by Rachel presenting progress to the Zoning Commission in October. In February 2020, Rachel and a Luther student met with the Zoning Commission to outline how these public meetings would be advertised and how the meetings would be conducted. 5 meetings were scheduled for the public to attend, choosing 1. 2 in Decorah, 1 in North Winneshiek, 1 in Ridgeway, 1 in Austin. We're going to try to spread these out over the county so that people had a good opportunity to come. In the spring of, In the spring of 2019, Mike McGee and Tony Phillips and I attended 2 of Rachel's class periods to see how this would be done. And this was followed by Rachel presenting the progress to the Zoning Commission in October. So these 5 public meetings, the first was scheduled on March 12th, 2020 in this room. Steve Kelsey, who was on the Zoning Commission at that time, and I attended. And we participated in how attendance was split into small groups, with individuals suggesting resources they wanted protected, putting stickers on maps of Winneshiek County to show where those resources existed. And then each small group agreed on 3 top resources, which were reported to the entire group. If you remember March of 2020, you know that a couple days later, COVID closed down all public venues. And the project was put on hold for 2.5 years until the fall of 2022, when all 5 meetings, public meetings, were held again, rescheduled and held, and we were able to continue. Once Rachel assembled and categorized all of the ideas from the community meetings, she presented that information to the Zoning Commission. And together we decided upon 6 categories that encompassed the top resources that participants had suggested. Rachel developed a questionnaire, the same basic questions for each of these 6 categories, going from general, how important is this resource to you, to much more specific, if there are conflicts in land uses, which resources should be prioritized over others. We had funding to print 2,200 questionnaires to send to randomly selected individuals in the county. Now, how do you do this? You contact and contract with a non-biased company that does this sort of thing. There are actually companies that do this. And they randomly chose participants who were registered to vote in Winneshiek County. Rachel got special permission from the state so that we could use registered voters. And we had a maximum of 1 questionnaire being sent to a household so that 1 family unit did not receive multiple surveys. Residents who did not get the paper questionnaire in the mail could participate online. And those online responses in the report that you have, you will see they are included in Appendix B. They are not, however, in the main body of the report. Those data simply come from the random questionnaires that were sent out. You will see, however, that both of these sets of questionnaires follow each other quite closely in most respects. I asked 2 statisticians what they expect for a rate of return for a paper questionnaire sent to random individuals. The male statistician that I contacted said that much of his graduate school studies, and these are rather young persons, so these graduate school studies are recent, Much of his studies involved survey work, and a 5% return is a pretty decent estimate of the rate of return in general, with this percent definitely going up if you offer some incentive, like $5 to $10 for every survey that's returned. We did not offer anybody any money. We offered no incentives. We simply gave them the questionnaire. The other statistician, who is an applied statistician who worked in industry and now teaches statistics at Luther, referred me to some research showing that the average return rate for external surveys like ours is 15%. And that 15% return rate, I should mention, not only includes paper questionnaires, but email surveys and also incentives to return surveys, which ours, of course, did not. Of the 2,200 surveys that we sent out, 683 were returned. And if you account for the 54 surveys that were returned to sender because of an inadequate address, we had a return rate of 31.8%. That's over twice what was expected. And that's really pretty amazing, 31.8%. And what this means is that the residents of Winneshiek County value the resources that we have, and they wanted their opinions heard and counted. Just going to say that once more. Return rate, 31.8%. Over 2 times what we expected, what was expected nationally, meaning that the residents of Winneshiek County value the resources that we have and wanted their opinions heard and counted. However, 683 surveys was way more than we thought we'd get back. And to be tabulated accurately, there was not a prayer that we were going to do that by the end of the summer. So this data tabulation went well into fall semester last year, pushing our timeline way back. And so today you've got the final report in front of you. And there are also pamphlets that are a much abbreviated form of this, simply so that the public can have these. And I'm going to turn this over to Rachel Brummel, who will tell you about the results of this project.
I'm going to check if so somebody, is this the computer that I can use to advance slides, or is that somewhere else?
I think just tell them they're going to do it.
Okay.
I think they'll do it for you.
Okay.
Right? I think it's, if you go and just tell them and they'll, yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So go ahead and go through all of these. There's going to come up. So good to see you all. I think the last time I saw all of you was maybe at a community meeting. You can go back to that one. So it's good to see you here with the full results of the study. So as Wendy said, this is a project status update. The report has been completed. I'm going to highlight some of the key kind of big stories from the report. There's a lot more in there, so I'm really just going to touch on some high level highlights. The other thing I want to do is invite you all, board of supervisors, anybody here, to community meetings that we're going to hold to actually share out these results and the results of the study in a more comprehensive way. And so it's been tricky during election season to find good dates, but we're going with November 14th at Pulpit Rock and November 20th at Pivo. So go ahead and advance. You can change slides. Change slides, click. Oh, there we go. Go ahead and click one more time. Okay, so Wendy talked a little bit about the process. I'm not going to go into super in-depth in the methods. Happy to answer questions for this, but I think it's really striking that overall, 1,112 people participated in this process. We had 136 people attend public meetings. Now, those are people who decide, hey, this is something I want to spend time on. So that was important to get us started. But really the meat of what I'm going to present to you today is from that random mail survey, because that captures a representative sample of the county. Okay, that's also why I'm not going to go into depth into the online survey, because those are people who choose to participate. So I'm really only focusing primarily on that random mail survey that people just got this in their mail and decided to respond to it or not. But again, as Wendy said, our sample size was large enough and our response rate was excellent. And so we can feel confidence in the representation of the samples, that this really represents the county as a whole. Go ahead and advance. So keep going on this. So a little bit about who the survey respondents are. This is just a little bit of a snapshot. 48% live rurally outside of incorporated communities. 52% live in town. 53% were between the ages of 55 and 74. 90% own their own home. 44% are lifelong residents of the county. On average, respondents have lived in the county for an average of 41 years. 17% are farmers. That's higher than what I could find for data in terms of the most recent data I could find is about 9% of employed residents of Winneshiek County work in the agriculture sector. 24% are anglers, 19% are hunters. And one thing that that's covering, but I think this is really important, about 3/4 of people said that Winneshiek County's natural and historic resources were either important in their decision to move to Winneshiek County or important to their decision to stay in Winneshiek County. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. I'm not going to go over this in detail. Wendy talked a little bit about it. You can look at the survey yourself to take a look at it's in the appendix of the report that you have. But as Wendy said, we went from kind of broad support for resource all the way to asking them to evaluate trade-offs. So you'll see that we asked them, for example, and we talked to planning and zoning as well as Tony Phillips for how we might ask a question in a way that was most helpful for decision making. But we asked them, for example, to what extent would you support the county restricting building in the county to protect this resource? Or to what extent would you support the county limiting other land uses to protect this resource? So we're trying to get not just that, hey, we like this resource, but like how much are we actually willing to accept trade-offs? And then we also had open-ended comments. Go ahead, next slide, please. So I'm going to give you the top 5 highlights right from the get-go and then dig in a little bit. So we had a very consistent top 3 resources that emerged across the survey. And I feel confident about these top 3 resources because we asked about them in multiple ways, and I'll show you that. But consistently, water resources, air quality, and farmland were the top 3 resources that residents in Winneshiek County prioritized. Water is really the biggest and strongest story emerging from this. I was very surprised, the consistency of people saying, this is something I value and I want to protect, and I'll show you some more data on that. Another surprise to me was the importance of air quality. I do want to mention summer of 2022, right? Is that when the survey went out? You guys remember what was happening? Canadian wildfires. So that was in people's minds as they were responding to this. That's not a bad thing. In some ways, it shows people how important something is when it kind of feels threatened, right? But air quality really was something that stood out very highly. Very high support for and recognition for the importance of farmland to our county. As you'll see, there was a little bit more complicated story on how willing people were to have the county act to protect farmland. And then finally, we really saw the strongest support for desires to protect publicly held resources. And I think that's part of the story about farmland and why there was a little bit less maybe strong support for protection of farmland as a privately held resource, private property. And public lands, parks, and trails were really highly valued by residents due to their contributions to tourism, recreation, and biodiversity and habitat. Next slide. You can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so I'm going to show you a couple slides on this story of the top 3 resources. I could have more slides on this because it was really consistent across. But if you look at the survey, you'll see we asked about resources separately, and then we also asked people to compare them, okay? So this was one where it's called a rating, where we asked them to rate the importance of all the resources. And in this case, it's kind of everybody can have it all, right? Somebody could say, I think all of these resources should be extremely important to the county. But what we found was there was some differentiation. And again, water, air quality, and farmland. This shows on this axis is the percentage of respondents who said that each of these resources should be vary to extremely important to county level decision making. So again, 90% of people said that water resources should be very to extremely important to county. 83% of people said air quality, and 63% of people rated farmland. Okay, next slide. But we also really challenged people and said, well, you can't have it all. You got to put yourself in the position of decision makers where you guys have to face this all the time. You can't have it all. There's trade-offs between things. If you have to choose a top 3, which means you have to let go of 3, what are going to be your top 3? This is one place where, again, I was kind of blown away by how consistent of a consensus there was for the importance of water. So 95% of respondents, those 683 respondents, put water in their top 3. 68% put air quality in their top 3, and 54% put farmland in their top 3. Okay, next slide. Next story. This is the second story I'm going to tell today. Again, is about water. We're already seeing this, but I want to look at it a little bit on its own. So there was a strong, again, the strongest consensus of any resource in the survey was water. And this is a statement people responded to, do we have a responsibility to protect our water resources? 98% of people said, I either agree or strongly agree to this statement. Okay, next slide. This is a little, I'm going to show you a few of this graph. It's a little busy, so let me show you what I'm talking about here. So the big story here is residents think water should be prioritized in county decision making and are willing to accept trade-offs to protect water resources in Winneshiek County. So what I want to show you here is the blue is a question that asks people to what extent do they think the county should prioritize decision making? That's kind of a big broad statement. What does that mean, right? It's just a general support, okay? The orange is more specific. To what extent would you support the county restricting building in particular areas or certain areas to protect water resources, okay? And so interestingly, you do see in the strongest category, people are thinking about this and they're recognizing, maybe I'm not going to support that as strongly. So I have confidence that people are paying attention to the questions. And then the third one, the gray, is to what extent people would support limiting other land uses and activities to protect water resources. And so overall, with this blue, where these arrows are, 88% of respondents strongly agreed that they support the county prioritizing water, protection of water in decision making. Next slide. If we look at that next stronger category of restricting building, 84% of people said, yes, I think if given the choice to protect water or do something else, I would support to restrict building in certain areas to protect water resources. Okay, so that's that orange. Next slide. And then 80% of people agreed or strongly agreed that they would support the county in limiting other land uses or activities to protect water resources. Okay. Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, so next one is air quality, okay? Again, this was one, when asked generally, people would say, yes, we have a responsibility to protect the air quality. About 96% of people agreed or strongly agreed that we have a responsibility to protect our air quality. Okay, next slide. I'm going to show you a similar graph, and you're going to see similar kinds of numbers as you did for water. 87% of people, again, supported that broad prioritization of protection, which is not super specific, but it's people thinking. Next slide. 83% said they support restricting building in particular areas. Next slide. And 78% of people strongly agreed they support the county limiting other land uses and activities to protect air quality. Next slide. Farmland, again, very highly valued by respondents. Okay, again, you can see this both when people look at this individually, but again, you can also see it when people looked at it in relation to other resources. Okay, it was consistently the third most important resource, but when people look at it on their own, again, they say farmland's important for our county, right? It's important for our county. Next slide. Where it gets a little bit trickier. I noticed the biggest difference amongst resources when I looked at the percentage of people who most strongly agreed with protecting that resource. And this is where, interestingly, farmland is actually the lowest of all the resources, of people strongly supporting. Now, if you put that together with, I agree, not just strongly agree, it looks somewhat similar to the third most important, but it's much more close to public lands, parks, and trails. But I think there's something to be gained, and this is for you all to talk about, to think about why might farmland be the lowest in terms of people most strongly supporting it. Okay, so 30% of people say that support the county restricting building to protect farmland. And people talked about threats to farmland, right? Great. Next slide, please. And 33% strongly support the county limiting other land uses to protect farmland. Okay, next slide. The last story I'm going to tell is about public lands, parks, and trails. This was one that was really, again, quite consistent. And people in particular, we asked questions, and I'm not presenting much data on this today, it's in the report. But people talked a lot about why they think public lands, parks, and trails were important. And they talked a lot about the importance of public lands, parks, and trails to tourism, to recreation, as well as to biodiversity. And so again, 93% of people agreeing or strongly agreeing in the importance of public lands, parks, and trails. And a lot of people in their comments talked about why they thought this was important, because it was already a publicly owned, publicly held resource. So they said, we need to do what we can to protect this. It's collectively belongs to the county and the residents. Next slide. Because it was something that people talked about quite a bit, I wanted to pull just a few quotations. The report itself has a lot of quotations from all the different resources, but I thought I'd end with this, just not to only have numbers, but that people shared their words as well. So this one says, outdoor recreation brings so much to this county: health, mental and physical, tourism, social connection, and land use. People talked a lot about bike trails. Cycling brings lots of visitors to the area, and cycling culture is growing. This will bring tourism. And then finally, another kind of quote that was pretty common and indicative: public outdoor natural areas and views for both recreation and education. That's a major impact on quality of life and an economic driver. Northeast Iowa is blessed with this gift. We should honor and not squander it. Next slide. So conclusions. So I was pleased with how this turned out. I think we all didn't know what was going to happen with this. When we put this survey out, Tony started emailing me and saying, I've got another a box of 100 surveys. And he was surprised too. And my student, I had just one student that summer, was also very surprised. And that's why, again, summer is my time for research. Once we hit the year, I'm taken away from sleep to get this stuff done. That's just not possible for me to do a lot of that during the year. So I think this study really provides a robust foundation, and I feel confident in the data. Okay. Again, there's consistent agreement on the top 3 most important resources for the county in water, air quality, and farmland. And then there's a clear public consensus for the consideration, prioritization, and protection of water resources in county level decision. Next slide. So this is conclusions continued. It is up to you all to decide what to do with this. My job was to collect the data, pull it together, and present it to planning and zoning. I submitted the report in September, and now to you all and to the community as well. But one thing that I would suggest, a lot of, if I were in charge, and I'm not, but a lot of the resources were really highly valued. That's to be expected because we chose them from, they were kind of merged and just raised to the top from the community meeting. So we already knew there were resources that people cared about. But so I would say this study should not be used to justify not protecting or disregarding those resources just because it might be the lowest in this particular survey. Okay, it still was, all resources still had a lot of support for protection and value. You all know that decision making is contextual, right? This is data that can broadly give broad guidance and stands as a resource for you all as you might weigh resource conflicts, trade-offs, and priorities, right? But we know situations may be different. And this is survey data, right? Last slide here. So there are a lot of people that participated and contributed to this over the last 6 or so years. First of all, the 1,112 residents who participated in this, I'm very, very grateful. I'm grateful for county staff. Tony Phillips, Ben helped me a lot when we were trying to figure out how to send the survey out and help me connect me with the Secretary of State on that. Board of Supervisors, you guys at multi iterations, the Board of Supervisors has been involved. Unseen heroes are the document center and post office staff. There's a lot of logistics that goes into putting out a survey like this. We had great facilitators at the meetings. Most of you guys were at those. Ann Mansfield and Chris Spansfog were 2 people. We had good mapping support. Brad Crawford from Northeast RC&D, lots of Luther students who made maps that are actually in the report themselves. The beautiful photos are all from Larry Reese. If they're outside, if they're inside, they're from me. So thanks to Larry for letting us use those. Lots of students that participated. And then in particular, this was a collaborative effort with the Winneshiek County Zoning Commission. We were really meeting a lot to talk about this. So I'm very grateful for their dedication to carrying this project through. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. I'm glad to have it in your hands. And I will be sending out, please do watch for more announcements about public meetings.
Is this available to the public online?
Will be. Tony and I have to work that out. Actually, for those of you who are holding one of these, I'm happy to hand them out. This QR code probably isn't active yet. Tony and I are working to get that fully up. So it's a placeholder, right?
And will these be available at the visitor center?
That's a great idea. I have, I could do that. Currently it is listed, something people should know is it's actually online as an appendix, so people can print it out on their own too, but it would be good. That's a good idea to see if we can maybe put it some public places to consider something.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you guys. Yeah, take care.
Wondering, as a board, if you want to make like with this, when the QR code is working, if we could put an announcement in the news section of our website to let people know they can click there, and maybe possibly a small ad to remind people they can look at it online when you're ready.
No.
After the tour.
Yeah.
To the tour.
I got.
Do we all agree
appointment
to?
I gotta go to, so I haven't been able to.
And we all agree, just real quick, to let people know where they can find this information when it's available through the QR code.
I think putting it up on there, so we link to the QR link and up to it on the website is a good idea. County homepage.
As soon as it's open.
Yeah.
Let us know when it's ready.
We'll probably do it this week at fall break, so.
Oh, right.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah, so, yeah, if you can tell me who's gonna make the motion now, so. Okay.
Who's going to second that?
Oh, I can second.
I didn't have it in the minutes correctly. I'm not gonna go to.
Those callers are resident dumpster, reliable, and Everest Property Group for the lease of Lupton.
The dumpster haul, there's only one dumpster hauler.
It says, this is from TJ, reliable dumpster is the only hauler. Winneshiek County Recycling hauls the other dumpsters. The only other agreement is with Everest Property Group.
So what's this only one hauler?
But there was a second one for the Bloomington site.
Well, recycling picks that up. Real waste dumpster. Yeah. Recycling picks that up.
You can vote after the meeting. If it's not unanimous, you tell me, so I can put it in the minutes. Yeah.
Keep it going to the next meeting.
Thank you, everybody.
There, have it around.
I'm gonna meet you there at 11:30, so it won't. You have a few minutes, but not a lot. Yeah, it'll take you.
Everybody online.
Zipper.